Hey everyone, so you know how to create variables, but how do we get two variables to interact with each other? How do we get two values to interact with each other in Python? And that is where operators come into play. So there's four pretty basic operators right here: plus, minus, multiplication, and division. These are a little bit more obvious, all right? So let's take two variables, x and y. X is equal to 6, y is equal to 4, and then we're going to set z equal to some operation between those two variables. So if we said that z was equal to x plus y, all right, then z is going to be equal to 10. So we've just given z that value of 10 by adding the two values together, all right? Well, let's do minus. So we have x minus y, all right? So z would be equal to 2. All right, so these seem pretty obvious and pretty easy. Multiplication, all right, z would be equal to 24. And then division. Now division is kind of funny. So in Python, whenever you divide, it's going to take however many times y can go into x. Now I know that seems obvious because that's what division is, but remember, you're going to be dividing two integers. So you're going to get an integer back, which means there are no decimal places. So the answer to right now, the value to z, would be 1. Now there's a way to get those decimal places out to get your remainder as a decimal, but we're not going to talk about that yet. It's a pretty advanced concept. But for now, just know that if you divide 6 by 4, 4 will go into 6 one time. So z is going to be equal to 1 in this situation. Now, here's an interesting thing. If we were to change these variable types to strings, all right, so now these are no longer the number 4 and the number 6. These are equal to the string of 6 and the string of 4. Remember, it's like you're writing it on a piece of paper. It has no value. It's more like a shape than it is really a value. So now if we were to add these two, you're not going to get, z is not going to be equal to 10. Z is going to be equal to the string of 64. Now remember, just because, sorry if I could type today, it's going to be equal to the string of 64. And remember, to the computer, a string is nothing more than two shapes. The string 64 is nothing more than two shapes sitting next to each other. There's no value. It just knows that it's equal to that. So remember the big difference between doing that. Now remember, this is called concatenation. All right, so concatenation is whenever you're adding together two strings. Now this is going to crunch them right next to each other because there's no spaces. But the cool thing is, if we were to add a space after the 6, this is now equal to the string, x is equal to the string of 6 and the space string. All right, so that's part of the string now. So now whenever you were to add these two, z would be equal to 6 space 4. So that comes in handy whenever you're going to be adding strings. Remember that if you add the spaces, then it's going to add them whenever you add them together. So that's really important when you're starting to add sentences and put variables into the sentences. Okay, all right. So now there are 3 more operators that are a little less obvious. All right, the first one is called modulo, and it just looks like a percent symbol. And a lot of people like to call this the remainder operator. They call it the remainder operator because whenever you run this, the answer is going to be equal to the remainder that's left after dividing the two numbers. All right, now this is a very useful function, and you'll find yourself wanting something like this in your programs a lot. So what you do is, if we did x modulo y, all right, z is now going to be equal to 2. So z's value is equal to 2 because 6 divided by 4 is 1 with a remainder of 2. All right, so that number 2 is going to become the value of z. All right, and the next one, the next two actually are increment and decrement. Okay, so this means that you are adding 1 or subtracting 1 every single time you run this. So for example, z could be equal to x plus equals. All right, let's make that a little x just to keep it consistent. X is equal, or z is equal to x plus equals. All right, so this would be equal to 7. All right, because it's incrementing it by 1. Every single time you do this, it's going to increment it by 1. So it'd be 7, 8, 9, 10 every time you use that operator. All right, so that's the basic operators in Python. There are some more complicated ones that we'll get to during the year, but these are the basics. So if you understand these, you can do a lot of things just by knowing how to declare variables and then how to get them to interact with each other using just these operators. All right, so thank you so much, guys. The next video will be about functions, so that's a great one. So I can't wait to see you there.